Hello everyone, I'm Janvi. So today let's look into the topic Introduction to MVC and MVT architecture. Django is a powerful web framework, offers two architectural patterns, MVC Model View Controller, MVT Model View Template. Both approaches provide a structured way to build web applications with distinct responsibilities for each component. Understanding the MVC design pattern. Model View Controller. A model manages the data and business logic of the application. It represents core functionality without any user interface elements. View. It handles the presentation and user interface. It receives data from model and formats it for display. Controller acts as intermediator, receiving user input and processing it and updating the model and view accordingly. Implementing MVC pattern in Django. Model in Django's MVC pattern represents the data and business logic of application. It interacts with the database to create, read and update and delete the data. View. View in Django's MVC pattern handles the presentation logic, rendering templates and processing user input. It acts as an intermediator between model and templates. Controller in Django MVC pattern is responsible for handling user requests, processing data, and coordinating the interaction between model and view. So now let's see the differences between MVC and MVT architecture. Request handling, URL routing, template rendering. Request handling. MVC separates request handling into model, view and controller. MVT combines view and controller into a single component called template. URL routing. MVC has a separate routing component to handle URL mapping. MVT integrates routing within the view template layer. Template rendering. In MVC, the controller is responsible for rendering templates. In MVT, the template handling, rendering, and HTML responses are being taken by the controller. Key differences between MVC and MVT architecture. Pattern in Django is the way they handle request processing and separation of concerns. MVC has distinct model, view and controller components, while MVT combines the view and controller into single template component, simplifying the overall structure. So now let's look further into Django MVT architecture. Model, view, template. Model handles data and logic. View processes request and renders template. Where model and view are same as model and view in MVC architecture. Template generates dynamic HTML pages. Django MVT architecture is the core of Django Web Framework. It separates the application logic into three interconnected components, model, view, and template. This pattern promotes modularity, maintainability, and scalability in web application developments. Django request response cycle. URL routing. A request enters the Django application through the URL. View logic. View function processes the request and generates a response. Template rendering. Response is rendered using HTML templates. Django request response cycle is the core of how web applications build with Django handle user interactions. When a user makes a request to Django application, URL is routed to appropriate view function. This view function processes the request and generates a response which is then rendered using HTML templates and sent back to user. Routing and URL handling in Django. URL configuration. Django's URL configuration allows you to map URLs to your application's view, enabling seamless navigation and handling of user requests. URL patterns. Django URL patterns use regular expressions to define the structure of your application's URLs, providing flexibility in handling complexity. Routing requirements. Named URL patterns. Django allows you to assign names to your URL patterns, making it easier to generate URLs and maintain consistency throughout the application. Views and templates in Django. View function. Django View are Python functions that handle incoming HTTP request and return response. They contain the application logic and interact with models and templates. Template rendering: View passes the data to template HTML templates, which generates the final web pages. Templates use Django template language to dynamically insert dynamic content into static HTML structures. Template inheritance: Django template support inheritance, allowing base templates with common layouts and components to be extended by child templates for specific pages. Models and database integration. Define models: represent database table as Python classes, map to database, connect the models to underlying database, perform CRUD, create, read, update and delete database records. In Django, the model layer is responsible for interacting with database. Models are defined as Python classes that represent database tables, allowing you to easily map the data to form database. Django ORM object relational mapping system handles low-level details of database interactions, enabling you to perform CRUD operations on the data using high-level Python code. So now let's discuss what are the benefits of using MVT in Django. Modular design. MVT architecture in Django promotes modular, scalable and maintainable code base, making it easier to manage and extend the web applications. Seamless database integration. Django's ORM object relational mapping layer simplifies the database interactions, allowing developers to work with Python objects instead of raw SQL queries. Rapid development. The MVT pattern along with Django's extensive set of built-in features enables the developer to build web applications quickly and efficiently, accelerate time to market. Thank you. I hope the information is useful.